Welcome to Parenting Decoded, a podcast for practical approaches to parenting. I'm Mary Eschen. Today, we're diving into a question that has haunted parents since the dawn of diapers. Why won't you sleep? Joining us today is a researcher and certified bringer of relief, McCall Gordon, author of the fantastic new book, Why Won't You Sleep? This isn't your typical just put on your child drowsy but awake kind of sleep advice. Oh no, this book is for parents of kids who treat bedtime like a WWE SmackDown, who wake up the second you breathe wrong and who make you question your life choices at 2 a.m. while Googling, is coffee a food group? McCall brings research, empathy, and just the right amount of you're not crazy, your kid's just intense to the conversation. We'll talk about what makes these little live wires harder to settle, why conventional sleep advice might be missing the mark, and how you can stop blaming yourself for things you never had control over in the first place. So if you're sleep deprived, delirious, and currently listening in the dark with one AirPod in while sitting next to your child's bed as they won't sleep, this is for you. Welcome, McCall. I'm so happy to have you on the show. I can't wait to talk to you about sleep and sleep deprivation and what the heck to do when you have a kid that just tires you out. And what you have so many great ideas. Yeah, tell me a little bit about live wires and what you do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Because I always say the dividing line between kids who sleep well and easily and those who don't is temperament. Everyone has friends who have those kids that just sleep. And everybody thinks it's because they've done some magical thing or they've done some method that worked great. And then they always think, what am I doing wrong? And I always tell them, it's not you. It's you just have a different kid. You have a harder child. You have a harder, steeper hill to climb. And that's temperament. Usually parents have a kid who came into the world a little bit more challenging, right? They are kids who are more alert. They're more intense. And that doesn't mean negatively. I got to come up with a different word than intense. So it's usually everything's a big deal. Happy, sad, surprised. Everything is a big deal. It's just the volume on feelings is turned up. I should just go through the things people say because that usually resonates more. So people will say, go 0 to 100 if I don't get to them fast. So big feelings that happen fast. A bad case of FOMO. So fear of missing out. My kid will not take a nap because she's afraid she'll miss something. Not easy to get to sleep because they don't seem like they want to sleep. Often needs to be bounced on a yoga ball to go to sleep. So needs a lot of help to go to sleep. They don't just drift off like some kids that I've heard about because I didn't have these children. So yeah.
Come to think of it, I used to have to rock my older one to sleep.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, in the car seat, we would just swing it.
Oh, swinging, vigorous. Yeah.
Yeah, but with our arm, not in it.
Yeah. Swing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You feel like a crazy person. I've heard some stories, believe me. I had one family that needed to walk or jog even on a treadmill. The baby needed this massive input to go to sleep. Perceptive, doesn't miss a thing. They'll say, oh, she does not miss a thing. Persistent, never gives up, ever, ever, ever. And sometimes you see these qualities from very, very, very tiny babies. I just talked to parents of a 9-week-old, 9 weeks. And some of these qualities were already showing up. These are not things that our parents create in their kids. These are qualities that happen sometimes right away at birth. Parents will already know something's up. Sleep problems do not go away. And often these parents have problems not because they haven't tried stuff, right? These parents have tried stuff and it's just not working. But nobody ever tells them, hey, it's not your fault. And that's kind of what I'm hoping this book really does for them is says, this is not your fault. You just have a different brand of kiddo. That needs a different mindset and a really different approach.
Well, in reading the book, I was really happy to see you and your co-author take the time to talk about different kinds of temperament too. It's
Yeah.
not just the kid that is overly emotional. There's kids that might not be overly emotional, but they're intense in a way of like noticing everything and
Right.
phones. You know, like
Right.
you don't pull that one type of intense kid, livewires you call them, into
Mhm.
one bucket. There's
Right.
lots of buckets, and it's so
Right.
fun to have read like, ooh, yeah, what kind of bucket is my kid? And you have
Yeah.
so many ideas of like, oh, that's my kid. And it
That's my
might be,
kid.
if they have multiple kids, their kid could be in a different section or something
Oh,
like
heck
that.
yeah. Yeah. In fact, the book has a downloadable workbook, and in there is a temperament quiz with a map that I'm actually pretty proud of, that's a circle with the traits on the outside of the circle. So instead of a bucket, which is a good word for it, but it's like a shape. So you kind of plot it so it looks like a shape, because your kid may not be so intense, but may be really, say, observant. So there's some kids that I call outies. They go out. They go out to the world, right? They go toward experiences. So probably more extroverts, let's just say that. There are kids who are intense, but they are more probably introverted. They're more cautious. They watch the world. They hang back. They're still intense, but they're just intense in a different way.
Yeah.
Kids are still live wires. They just roll a little differently. And they all still need a different approach because they're all still sensitive. They have sensory processing sensitivities that really need to be accounted for when it comes to sleep, because all of that impacts sleep, all of it. It impacts sleep dramatically. And I should say that when it comes to sleep, we have to think about what it takes to fall asleep, right? I call it the sleep system. And what that means is we have to know we're sleepy, number one. We have to feel sleepy. Then we have to be willing to feel that feeling and turn away from the world. And then we have to be able to fall asleep. Well, these kids who are so busy, number one, and so into the world, they don't get that memo from the brain that they're tired. They just don't. I don't know if the signal is not as strong or if they just don't tune into the signal, but they just do not have sleepy signals. They don't yawn. They don't rub their eyes. Parents are waiting for those signals and they do not come. I tell a story that my daughter, when she was, I don't know, I say 10 months. I don't remember, actually, amnesia. I would watch David Letterman come on and go off. Now, for all of you out there who don't remember when David Letterman came on, it was after Johnny Carson. So I think it was like he came on at like midnight. So my 10-month-old was like, she was not fussy. She was not cranky. She was going strong. And I felt crazy because I thought, this isn't how it's supposed to be. Something's really wrong with me. I don't think I'm supposed to be up at 1 o'clock in the morning with a baby who is not sleepy. So what I didn't know is that she had probably been a little tired hours and hours and hours before, but I missed the teeny little window that she probably was a little bit fatigued, but just didn't show it to me, right? So they don't get the memo that they're tired. They don't know how to turn toward that feeling, again, because they're so busy. And then their sensory sensitivities or their overtiredness also prevents them from easily falling asleep. So all of that requires a lot more help, a lot more vigilance on parents' part, and a lot more knowledge, because you have to know what to look for and how to navigate all that. So they just need a whole different roadmap, honestly, to help them navigate that tricky path to sleep. Because other kids will yawn. Other kids will go, oh, and they'll lie down. They'll go to sleep. So easy, but it's just not for these kids.
Well, and most of the audience that listens to my podcast, they have like maybe a 2-year-old, but certainly more like through 5 years old or whatever, and not necessarily newborns, but they're still being driven crazy. Their kids are wanting to co-sleep with them at night. I remember sitting in my son's room when he was 3 and 4 years old, 5 years old, and it's like he didn't want me to leave until I was asleep and everything. And I loved how you pointed out like it wasn't really helpful. And it's like, it wasn't. He is a grown individual and he's fine. But it was like, that's really hard because like you just want some free time. same. I'm just going
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Well, what happens to parents with these kids is that you get really thrown off, obviously, for obvious reasons. First of all, it is not what you expect. It is not what you see other people experiencing. And it's way more exhausting. I mean, that is just no lie. Parents of these kids are working way harder because it's just taking more thought, more self-examination, more research, more everything, because it's just not like what you thought it was going to be. Plus, these kids just really keep you on your toes, really 24 hours a day, because again, they're not sleeping, right? So you're working around the clock. And there's generally more meltdowns. These kids just have a lot more difficulty with regulation as well. So it's a lot.
Because they're tired. Yeah.
They're tired, but they're just a lot more, they have a lot more emotional, I call them live wires because they have a lot more emotional current running through their system. Their little circuits blow a lot more easily. So parents are having to just manage a lot. Parents get wiped out, and then you end up sort of giving in to things simply because you're wiped out. And when they're 3 and 4 years old, and they're also, I have to say, these kids are quite bright. These kids really understand how to game the system.
Well, and you said they're so observant.
They're so observant. I mean, bless their hearts. They can see
that when their parents are weak.
Yeah, and we are weak because we're exhausted. It really is a system where literally no one's at fault. And listen, when I work with parents, the whole first part of our meeting is me patching the parents back up because they really feel like roadkill. They really feel like they have screwed it all up. And I have to let them know they absolutely have not. They have responded to the kid they have, and they have a really challenging situation because this kid is smart and they have very big feelings. So we have to get everybody patched up. So with older kids who have want the parent in the room or parents lying with them for an hour and a half, we have to help the parents pick some battles. And then I always say, rein in the shenanigans and lock it down. So we have everybody get a plan and we start tapering. And this works, by the way, this is a good tip. We're going to fold in a tip.
Okay, good.
The tip for everyone is pick your battles, but fight the ones you pick, and then taper off whatever it is you're currently doing in a gradual, methodical way. That is really sleep training in a nutshell. You don't have to do cold turkey, which does not work for these kids. You don't have to leave the room. That does not work for these kids. But you can taper it off in a gradual, methodical way. They're not going to love it, but if you're just tapering, we're gradually scaffolding their ability to tolerate it. So if you're lying down fully with your body next to your 4-year-old, sit up in the bed. They can handle that. Then in a few days, sit next to the bed. They can handle that. Let them know you're going to do it. Don't surprise them, but just gradually pick that battle and get going. Just do it. We got to just gradually push them without blowing anybody out of the water. This is the problem with the current sleep training situation is the only option parents are given is to leave the room. And that does not work for these kids generally. I will say generally it doesn't work. Because what you're doing is you're saying, oh, if you let them cry, they'll figure it out. These kids do not figure it out. These kids go straight to hysterical, and then they don't have the ability to calm themselves down, right? Other mellow kids will cry, and then go, okay, whatever. And they'll go to sleep.
Tired.
I'm tired. Yeah, it's not worth it, right? They'll do that. These kids cannot do that. They'll just keep going. We know that, right? I'm sure there are parents listening who go, yep, tried it. 3 hours later, didn't work, right? Yeah.
The other point that hit home for me was parents who let their kids fall asleep with them in the room and then they leave. We finally get a little hour or two on our own. And then at 2 a.m, they wake up and they're like, where's mom and dad? And then they have a big meltdown in the middle of the night. I'm like,
right.
Oh, yeah. So if you do train them, meaning
Yeah.
whatever we are doing is training them like
Yeah.
mom's going to stay in the room
Yeah.
in order for me to go to sleep.
Yeah.
I become
Yeah.
part of the training of the
pattern.
I just never had anybody point that out so obviously to me of like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
a
I'm
pattern.
sure we all know that we were part of the pattern, but like,
Yeah.
I don't have any choices. It's what
Yeah,
your
you
book
can't
helps,
ask. Yeah.
helps
Yeah.
move people towards. Like, oh,
Right.
there are some solutions.
Well, and the information that's out there, this is another sort of thing I'm trying to change is the information that's out there is so shamey, right? It's all bad habits and sleep crutches. And it's just the language is so terrible. Look, it is just a pattern. It's just a pattern. We can change patterns. It's not a big deal. But whatever you're doing at bedtime sets the template for how kids think sleep happens. Somebody's lying with me and I go to sleep. So when I wake up, I need somebody to be lying with me in order to go back to sleep. It's like I call it the breadcrumb trail to sleep. That's how I get to sleep. So you can't ask a kid to do in the middle of the night what they're not doing at bedtime. That's why we say, if you're going to sit up in the bed, then when they wake up at night, go sit up in the bed. Then if you're sitting beside the bed in the middle of the night, go sit beside the bed. Now, eventually, hopefully, you'll be sitting out in the hallway, and then pretty soon you won't have to sit there anymore. It's a process, but it's my favorite analogy is it's like how you would teach a kid to ride a bike. This is my favorite one. We don't give a kid a bike and say, good luck, kid. I'll be in the house. I can't help you or you'll never learn. No, we first give them training wheels and then we take the training wheels off and we hold on to the back of the bike for dear life while they get the idea of pedaling and all that. But we're not going to just hold on to the bike because then they'll never learn how to balance. So we're letting go a teeny bit so they get that feeling of imbalance. Oh my God. And then we grab on again. And then we let go for longer. And then we let go for longer. And then we let go. And then pretty soon they're off and running. That's exactly what sleep needs to be. Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. So you can go super duper slow. You can go a little faster. But the idea is you just gradually start letting go of the bike so that they can get the feel of it. And then you just say, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. With your presence and your support, but you let them do the work. Mostly. Yeah. Yeah.
But I love that you give parents so many ideas about how to set up the overall plan and how to taper, how to start with something small and build on it. I just think it's just such a great resource. I haven't seen that explained so well. And I just think that parents, I was telling you ahead of time that I was giving a seminar this weekend with a dad who has 2 3-year-old twins, and he and his wife are going crazy. And I swear he bought the book on Amazon while we were in class. But it's just like, he was living proof of being exhausted. Yeah. Just exhausted and not knowing what to do with her. He's like, I'm sleeping in the guest room because, it's like, I just have to get some sleep. It's
no, it's bad. I've heard it's really awful. But and let me also, one other little caveat. There are lots of instances where the problems are not behavioral. Let me just say that. Because I do know, like if I have parents of a baby, say a 9-month-old, and they're like, yeah, my 9-month-old is waking every 45 minutes. Okay, folks, that is not a behavioral problem. Every 45 minutes, that is not behavior. Something's wrong. Something's physically wrong with that baby. Or if you have a kiddo, a toddler who's snoring, breathing through their mouth, things like sleepwalking, awake in the middle of the night for hours at a time. So there are certain issues that are covered in the book, but certain issues that are not behavioral problems. A behavioral problem is like, my kid wants me to lie with them as they fall asleep, and then they wake up in the middle of the night and they come into our room, or they wake up in the middle of the night and I have to go lie with them, but then they go right back to sleep. Okay, that's behavior. Problems that are like way worse, way bigger, don't respond to behavioral approaches. That's when we really have to start looking at medical issues, obstructed breathing, because that's not behavior.
Oh, well, that's good to
Yeah.
bring into the conversation.
Yeah. No kid should be, outside of a cold or allergies, kids should not be snoring or breathing through their mouth when they sleep. That's just a good caveat across the board. That's when you really should go get them looked at by an ENT for adenoids and tonsils. Yeah.
Or an allergist for allergy-related issues.
Could be, but I go to an ENT first. It's snoring and mouth breathing. That happens quite a bit. I mean, I can't even tell you. And then I see a lot of kids with restless leg syndrome. If you have an older kid who's complaining that their legs hurt and they're awake, or the sleep problem is just nightmarish, goodness. If you have a kid, if somebody's listening right now and your kid has a truly nightmarish sleep issue, please contact me. I will help you figure it.
Know which kind of specialist to work with and stuff like that.
Yes.
That's the hard part for parents when I work with them on a various, number of issues of like, they haven't been parents very long. And like, it's never happened to me. I didn't have that when I was growing up. Like, where do I turn to? And sometimes a pediatrician might be helpful, and sometimes
they're usually not, because pediatricians get an average of 15 minutes of training on sleep. And so more often than not, they will just say sleep trained. And sleep training is not the answer for babies who are too young, and it's just not the answer for a lot of issues. If you're not getting the right answers, if your gut is telling you something else is the matter, feel free. And especially, I have to say, with these intense kids, they're a little like the princess and the pea. Remember that story where there was the princess on all the mattresses, and it was just a little pea that kept her up all night. That's what these kids are like. So it doesn't take a lot to throw them off. And sometimes a little discomfort, ear infections, reflux, eczema, huge. Doesn't take a lot of physical discomfort to throw these kids way, way off. And you may need to really address the physical symptoms before you can really touch behavior. Yeah.
I have a few of my nieces who've had sleep coaches, and they are astounded at how much difference it made in their lives.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's so cool that you've been a sleep coach for a long time before you wrote this book. You have so much knowledge. It's just like, how nice that somebody could guide you through some steps that like, oh, if I have a really regular schedule, or, like I can't throw my live wire off, because if I throw my live wire off, it's off. Like everything's off.
And at the same time, I do, in the book, I'm pretty clear that I don't usually recommend sleep training before 6 months. I really don't, because babies' development is so fluid. There's really not a lot of good research on sleep training before 6 months. And also, you really don't have to do anything before 6 months. There's a lot of books out there that recommend all this like strenuous work with very young babies, and it's just really not necessary or recommended. So people can really take a breath. People are stressed about it, and you really don't have to stress out. There's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
Well, and in my work that I do, I said most of the parents maybe have a 2-year-old to all the way through high school.
Yeah.
And they haven't set the patterns like they could have maybe as they were younger. And a lot of it has to do with just not having exposure to what great resources there are out there.
Yeah. And at the same time, I think too, though, that too much information also can undercut their confidence in themselves, right? And I think that parents, especially in those first few months, parents are so information driven that they don't get to take the time to go, what do I think is the right thing to do? What if I try this? What if I try that? And they really get so worried they're going to screw up their baby. And it's because I talk to a lot of brand new parents, and just telling them like, hey, you have time to figure yourself out, to figure out your baby. You're not going to ruin your baby by just saying, hey, I wonder if I try a nap now, what'll that do? What if I hold my baby this way? It's okay. Parenting road is really long. Don't blow yourself out now. Right?
Yeah. Well, and you probably encourage them, like, sometimes you can set a pattern that you might not like doing forever.
Yeah. And you can
Right.
change it. That's the great thing. You can always change it. Nothing is set in stone. If you make a mistake, you can always change course. That's what parenting is all about. Lately, my only big advice is don't use ChatGPT for parenting advice.
Yikes. Can you imagine what's going to happen 20 years from now? Everyone will
No.
be just asking.
No.
It's
Don't
disturbing.
use
It's
ChatGPT.
disturbing.
Email
so
me.
you gave us one tip
Yeah.
about tapering things. What other tips do you
Great. So the other one with these kids is, I think I sort of quickly mentioned it before, but don't wait for them to look tired. People sort of rest on this idea of like, oh, my kid is just low sleep needs. Yeah, no, maybe, but don't rest on that. These kids tend to power right on through. Kind of get a sense of what a wake window is for your child, especially the younger ones, and start with the lower end, because these kids get overtired very easily and then they're on a second wind and then you're just toast. So really getting them enough sleep during the day, an early bedtime. Just don't wait for them to look sleepy, because they never, ever, ever, ever will. So that sometimes can just be magic. Early bedtime, enough sleep, taper things off. Those were my big ones. And pick your battles. Yeah. Consistency. And all that means is don't just try something once. Parents get so shell-shocked. They try something once and then they go, oh, that's not working. Let me try this. Oh, that's not working. Let me try this. That's not working. You got to try something. Know that they're going to hate it the first time you do it. That's okay. Try it again. See if it's any better. Maybe try it again. Give it 3 times and really track. Did it get it all better before you really ditch it? People expect something to work the first time they try it, and that's not how it happens. So pick something and really, really do it consistently for a few times and track your progress. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think in your workbook, you have a tracker.
I do. Yes.
Like you have a lot of great resources. And one of the things we were talking about before we started was there's an audio version of your book.
Yes, on Audible. So you can listen to it as you sit in the dark waiting for your child to go to sleep.
Exactly. Because that poor young dad I met, I'm going like, when will he and his wife ever have time to sit reading a book? It was hard enough for me, and I don't even have kids at home. Like, I know. Making myself sit and read a book.
It's
so
hard.
That's just so hopeful that, and it's in your voice, I'm assuming.
It is. I did it.
It is. Yes. Excellent.
Myself. Yeah.
Well, McCall, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your advice. I love your book.
Thank you.
I will put the links to it in the show notes, as well as to the Audible as well.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you so much for being with me.
Oh, such a pleasure. It was great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, audience. We will be back next time. Have a blessed rest of your day.